Greater Good Radio. Connect, learn, heal, and grow. How would you describe your relationship with Senator Inouye? And how did you build that? Because you were so much younger. I mean, you're like a junior person, and then he's already, big time.
Well, keep in mind that when I worked for the senator in Washington, when I worked out of his office, I was on his patronage, actually, which means in Washington that you work for him, but somebody else pays you. I mean, that's what patronage is. And Washington is
like a sponsor, kind of.
Used to be full of patronage. Well, it has more to do with budgeting.
Oh.
You could be on committee staff, but you worked for the senator. When I was on patronage in his office, he was a 44-year-old senator. He wasn't that old, right? Who had never lost an election. I didn't get to know him that well, except, the organizational chart for a senator oftentimes looks like a wagon wheel with him in the center and everybody else rotating around, revolving around him. So when he was in the office, everybody was in the office. And if he was waiting for a vote at 9 o'clock at night, everybody was in the office. I mean, that's the way it worked. And he'd get bored. So he'd come around and talk to people. And once in a while, he would talk to me. And so I got to understand him a little bit more. In those days, he only hired patronage positions from GW.
Why?
Because he went there.
Oh.
And he was close to the president. When I graduated from law school, he said to me, you really gotta go back home. I said, well, I got some offers on committee. He says, don't do that. Go home. He said, you think you got here all by yourself? You got here because a lot of other people gave up stuff for you. So go back, at least try to pay it back. That was his word. When I left in 1968, it was an election year. He was up for re-election. And he told me, I don't want to see you around the campaign office, because that was sort of part of the deal too, right? I mean, you're going to be on his patronage, campaign time, you got to come out. He said, you go study for the bar. You come out next election, which would have been 1974. A lot was going on. Watergate was in full bloom. He was on the special Watergate committee in the Senate. He was becoming famous with Sam Irwin and those guys, right? And as it turned out, the special Watergate prosecutor's office, when they started to investigate the committee to re-elect, which was Nixon, it was like them putting a pen on a blotter. It just spread, right? Because a lot of the stuff that was being done by the committee to re-elect, other people were doing too. And one of the things that happened in that 74 period was that the rules changed about political contributions. You couldn't take cash anymore. In the old days, bundles of cash would fly around. But it could be reported too, but oftentimes wasn't. And the world changed. So what happened was some of the old timers got caught in that because their world didn't change. It's just that the law changed, right? And his committee got into trouble. It got into trouble because they had taken money from, actually turned out to be the owner of the Yankees. And rather than reporting it, they turned it back because he had gotten into trouble with campaign spending. And that was illegal. And the prosecutors started investigating a guy by the name of Henry Juni, who was his chief of staff. And I was at the campaign committee office once when Henry was kind of bragging about the fact that he's going to appear before the special Watergate prosecutor's office because they're investigating a guy by the name of Claude Wild, who was with an oil company, and he knew Claude really well. And when I looked at the paper, I said, Henry, they're not investigating Claude Wild, they're investigating you. Because he said, how do you know that? I said, well, you take a look at the reference numbers, right, on the past stuff. The reference number had changed. And that ended up with me spending the next 18, 19 months commuting to Washington, working with the special Watergate prosecutor's office. It turned out that the truth was a lot less damaging than what their perception was. And it took a while to get them to come around, the Watergate prosecutor's office, to get them to come around to what the truth was. And I got to know the senator really well because he was on the special Watergate committee, select committee, investigating some of the same people that the campaign committee had a relationship with. So it was really a sensitive time.
So weird conflicts almost, yeah?
Yeah. And so I was traveling secretly to Washington, and I would go to a law firm that was a friend of the senators and use their offices. I'd stay in the hotel and we'd meet all over. And what I'm telling you is it's been in the press. And we ended up taking a plea, but a minor misdemeanor plea on a technical violation. But it took us over a year to get through that whole process. In the meantime, I got to see the senator in situations that I would never have been able to do. And it built up a sense of trust and confidence and whatnot. This is an odd thing to say, but when I saw the senator under stress, he was incredibly calm. And I came to the conclusion that people who have seen the faces of men that you kill, which he did, see the world differently. They just see the world differently. After going through that, nothing shakes them very much. And he was like that. He's very, you put people under a lot of pressure and you see a whole bunch of different kind of reactions, from panic to, he was serene wasn't the right word, but he got cold, kind of a cold, kind of calculating thing. And he just dealt with it. Anyway, as an aside. So we got to be pretty close. And then over the next several campaigns, it became clear, because he would ask me to do stuff, that other people became very aware of the fact that we had a relationship. In the meantime, George was governor. So the political connections were pretty obvious. And I think that may not have been the primary reason why I started sitting on a lot of boards or having a lot of clients, but that was probably not unimportant.
If you resonate with Greater Good Radio, please join our community at www.greatergoodradio.com, where you can get access to exclusive content and offerings. Hope to see you soon.